Do I look at that squad and think that's a squad that should win the league? I'm not sure.
The shirt's been almost pulled into a new sizing, you could argue.
Well, the YouTube comments are coming at you for suggesting it. I don't know who to pick anymore.
Hello and welcome A-League fans to another episode of the A-League's Download presented by Isuzu UTE. Both Melbourne teams are out of the A-League. Who would have thought? Some powerhouses already out of the game. Auckland will be taking on Adelaide and now Newcastle facing Sydney FC after Auckland's and also Sydney FC's respective wins over the weekend. A lot to go through. We're going to be breaking down the games more so than usual because there's only a fewer games this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm your host, Jake Barker-Daish, and joined today by the Lord himself, Rashid Mahazi, former Melbourne Victory champion and Perth Glory. Well, he's a champion on and off the field. Naum, Sekulovski. Butka, it's good to have the dynamic duo back today, eh?
We're back, mate. Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
You can't separate us two.
Yeah, it was some pretty good games over the weekend. I mean, we went all the way in Auckland, which we're going to go through, and then who would have thought Sydney FC with a bit of a bank heist at AAMI Park.
Not us.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Clearly, yeah.
That's for sure. Well, we're going to get straight into it, guys, because the Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory game, it had us licking our lips before the game started. We were thinking Melbourne Victory probably are going to get the chocolates in that one because of the strength that they showed throughout the season. Juan Mata was coming back in, but Paddy Kisnorbo went and did what no one thought. He went back against his old team and took away a 1-0 win. Guys, we just got to touch on this because it was a very interesting game, Butka, in the sense of it felt like Melbourne Victory dominated quite a bit of it. Yet Sydney FC had one real opportunity off a mistake and bang, they're into the next round.
A real smash and grab type game from Sydney, super organised from Paddy. And if we look at the young man here, Franco, just has an absolute Barry Crocker. To be fair, his game was probably a 9 out of 10 up until that point, so had a really strong game. And then Wood, absolutely, really, I mean, after scoring this goal, he thinks about going away from the crowd, does a U-turn and then pulls a double cobra in front of the Melbourne Victory fans. But just, disappointing probably for Victory, for mine, after all the domination and the chances that they created. They'll feel that they could have got a lot more out of that game. And I'm sure we'll talk about a couple of decisions that came through the referees and VAR as well.
It sums up their season, doesn't it? For Sydney FC, that is. You know, it's incredible that they even got to this position where they are.
Yeah.
With, I believe, their top goal scorer is Quintal on 5 goals or something like that. So very low scoring, but tight defensively, and then to be in the finals and now to go on.
Yeah,
incredible.
Very much so. Patrick Wood as well, we've got to give him a shout out. His impact off the bench throughout the season, the way he stayed ready. I mean, he's done a great job since coming back into the club. And as I spoke to Paul Ocon after the game, he mentioned that they knew Patrick Wood had a goal in him, and when he came on, he was barely on for a few minutes and took the game away from Melbourne Victory. Just want to quickly just touch on, before we get into Victory's dominance, Sydney FC, one thing they've done well under Patrick Kisnorbo, 4 out of their last 5 games, if you will, they've kept a clean sheet. Rashid, and obviously in this game they had some really key experienced defenders out with Grant and also Tisserand, Alex Grant that is, and Tisserand, who are their experienced pairing at the back, out, yet they still managed to have this compactness and really suffered well together, if you will, with the amount of attacks that Victory had. Yeah,
well, Victory were obviously pressing them really hard in that first half and creating a bit of chances from that. But just tight, when they do lose the ball, they close up shop, and obviously Devenish-Meares has been incredible for them. So we'll get on Devenish-Meares in a sec. Victory had 16 shots for 6 on target to 6 shots and 2 for Sydney Butka. We're going to have a look at Victory's dominance and chances, if you will, which you can take us through. But it felt like they had opportunities that they're going to be hurting over now that they didn't take one of them.
You're looking at that first half especially, like these chances are really, really strong chances. Nish does well there. And Duka here, great feat. Sends, I think, Popovic out to the Budek shop. And then just Devenish-Meares really has done what he's done all season.
Yeah, there at Veluplay again, you see here, again, this was the moment and a save, wasn't it, that one there?
This was the one. Like, that save is absolutely world class. Nish, I think here he can cut it back. Yeah. That's probably the team thing, so he'll be disappointed with that. But really, overall, I mean, you look at them chances, and Devenish-Meares has absolutely, done what he's done all year. Probably could be, goalkeeper of the year up there with Redders.
Rashid, just quickly, did you feel on the game that you were watching that it was Victory were the dominant team, or did you think Sydney didn't get enough credit in how they played?
I don't think Sydney got enough credit with how how much fight they showed, particularly in the midfield. I thought they were quite dominant in the midfield, but like I said before, Victory were pressing very high, particularly in that first half, and creating a lot of opportunities. So I think the opportunities, the chances on goal, even though some of them were, 30 metres over the bar, is probably skewing that a little bit towards Victory dominant.
Well, you're speaking of dominant, the midfield, as Paul Okon Jr. and Wataru Kamijo, they were outstanding. I mean, their physicality, the way they played on John Rowan Valadon and even kept Mata, sort of nullified him to an extent. They were played almost beyond their years. They were doing a lot of tackles that were fierce and strong, that
Super
could
aggressive.
easily have been cards and fouls, and they kept getting away with it like some wily old vets.
And I think we've spoken about pretty much all season about Okon Jr., about how good he is technically and physically, but then now seeing him in a situation in a final series where he's standing up and being the one that he's taking the team with him, saying, come on boys, let's fight, let's get a bit dirty. He's got a big golf ball on top of his forehead.
Yeah,
it's good to see that he's got that side of him as well.
Yeah, he might have definitely really pushed himself up the agenda in Popovic's World Cup plans off that performance, particularly playing against Danny Jonro, who you could argue they were vying for a position there for either of them. Harrison Devenish-Meares, guys, what a game he had. He's a player that could potentially be in Socceroo contention, but he's been outstanding all season. He's had the most clean sheets, and we knew that he was going to be a big presence for this game, but Butka, I mean, he seems like a very calm and strong presence. We saw some of the saves he's made. I don't know if you remember the one at Auckland. It was like Gordon Banks with that right hand, but he stood up. Some of them were routine, but nonetheless, he stood up when it counted upon.
Like I mentioned earlier, he's been up there with Redders. We'll see who takes home the goalkeeper of the year. He's chewing the gum. He always looks relaxed, comfortable, and he knows what's in front of him as well. So he's really got that support mechanism in front. But from an individual standpoint, this save, is absolutely world class. And it just goes to show you how much that, number one goalkeeper can really set up the season. I mean, if you look at PK's, interview, we know that they're super organised, right? They're super compact, but having that number one in between the sticks is massive, particularly in this finals run.
And coming from where he started the season, that's I think the big story here. He obviously started, he sort of wasn't even picked as the number one goalkeeper, and then he's come in, won that position. And the biggest thing with him that I think is special is he has moments, I've seen throughout the season, he's had one or two games where he started slower, he's made a couple mistakes early on, and then being able to balance himself back in the game, chew his gum, and then stand up big is amazing.
He's got a bit of swagger about him. I mean, Butka, you played at the back. Rashid, you played as a holding midfielder. Especially when you've got a young central defensive pairing in Popovic and Courtney Perkins, missing that experience, having that stability with a strong keeper that's making big saves. I mean, could you share what that essentially gives you playing in front of him, that confidence to have someone that's rock solid at the back?
It's an insurance policy, right? And having that insurance policy as a back four is absolutely huge. I mean, you can see he sets up the game. He's an organiser, which is, I'm sure what, Paddy inspires and brings to him as well. But for me, as a back four, you've got that insurance policy and that base behind you. It just allows that young group to really excel and focus on what they need to focus on.
Yeah. Rashid, Patrick Beach is, the keeper that's kind of been tagged as the A-League keeper that could be that second or third spot in the World Cup position. We know he got injured and played a few games on his way back into the return, but he's been a great season. He had 9 clean sheets all season. Devenish-Meares was called into the last Socceroos camp just to do some training, I guess. Is he a chance, do you think, with the form that he's showing? I mean, Popovic is the kind of coach that could take a chance on someone like him.
I think you have to say he is a chance, of course.
Yeah.
And then going into this finals, now, he's got a few more opportunities potentially to show what he can do in really big moments. So, I mean, I don't know when Pop is going to actually make the decision for this is the final squad, but it's probably before the grand final.
Well, he's building a case, that's for sure. Boys, are you ready to go into the VAR box? Because we are about to put our hats on here because there were
I've been waiting all weekend, Jake.
Oh, yeah, there were a couple decisive moments. Well, let's bring up the first one because this was off a corner kick and this was Jason Davidson with Stanitolopoulos' shirt being pulled. The ball comes in and you'll get a close look at here. this was not given a penalty and this was not reviewed by VAR. So this was a massive moment in the game. The Victory bench were up in arms. Jason Davidson got up, was in disbelief that nothing was called. There was no review. I mean, guys, their shirt's been almost pulled into a new sizing, you could argue. Now, we're going to go into the VAR box here and put our hats on because ultimately everyone in the stands, in the stadium saw the replay. Everyone thought, wow, that probably looks like a pen, looked like a professional foul that was given. But VAR obviously have seen it and they haven't decided to tell Lockie Keevers that, hey, I think this needs to be reviewed. So if we look at it from the VAR perspective of what they saw, is there any merit to saying that the ball was, going over Davidson's head? Is there any merit here for that to not be reviewed, or is that a massive moment that's been missed and Melbourne Victory heard?
Well, the YouTube comments are coming at you for even suggesting it. Maybe you can answer.
Wow, I mean, it's a clear penalty to me. I'm going to be honest. That's unbelievable.
There's a question of whether the ball was in his zone or wasn't in his zone. We're assuming that the VAR has got a snippet of this and can see this. If Lockie and he's looking in that area, but clearly he's missed it.
He does make a gesture though with his left hand to say that he's seeing that, and he says no. He says no.
Well, maybe Lockie doesn't think it's a penalty either. But in any case, if we're anywhere around the world and we see that, that's a penalty 10 times out of 10, I'd say.
And in the game, I mean, it was probably the momentum swung after that because it felt like there was, on the second penalty shout that went Sydney's way, the game kind of came more into balance and Victory started having to use their bench. Sydney brought on some fresh legs. Juan Mata was getting ready to take that penalty and they got 1-0 there and potentially Victory go through. So it's a massive moment in the game. And, it is hard to see things in real time, but people up in the box that can review it, I think that's a really big moment miss. And I genuinely sympathise with Dilla there on that one because he was frustrated and a bit of head loss, you could say.
Do you sympathise with his facts?
No, we're going to touch on those. Sorry, Arthur. But nonetheless, let's get into the second one before we get there. Because there was a moment, Santos has been incredible. His burst of speed, as we know, can cause problems. And this moment, guys, was the penalty that was given by Lockie Keevers. He just gets around Paul Ocon Jr. You see there might be a little clip. The question was it in the box as well, which is where the review process came in. Lockie Keevers gets called over to review his penalty decision on the VAR box and comes to the conclusion that he didn't believe there was a foul, as you'll hear here.
After on-field review, there is no foul. Restart is a drop ball.
So the Victory bench again was up in arms, right? So this was another moment. Now, I really like this process. I thought it was done well and exactly what VAR should have done. I didn't think it was a penalty. But you guys actually back there were like, they thought there was contact. Which, where I was on the weekend, I didn't really think there was much in it. But you guys changed my view or tried to challenge that anyway. So, Batka, you want to share, what you saw?
Well, I think there is contact. So, again, this is the beauty of the game, right? We're all at an opinion-based level. And even though we've got that footage from VAR, I'm seeing it one way, you're seeing it another way. Now, the only way we can really find out if there's some snicko technology where we know if he actually hit him. Well, if he actually makes contact, which I think, Lord, we're of the assumption that they have made, or he has made contact, the only question is it in the box or is it outside?
So where was the contact though? Is it the knee on the thigh?
Yep, right there.
So is that enough for you though to get, I mean...
I think at speed and at pace, you don't need a massive amount of contact to bring someone down. I mean, even if you have a look at that run, it's almost like a 90-degree turn that Santos is making. You only need, the minimal amount of contact, and he's going to go down, especially at that speed. So, for me,
is it more like a bit of an obstruction rule in a way, like he's stopped his path of movement? Is that?
No, I think he's made contact. I think he's made contact with him. So again, that's my opinion. Lord.
Yeah, I've got much more sympathy for the refs in this situation. I think he does touch him, but it's extremely soft as a pen. So I think if in gameplay he didn't give it originally, if he didn't call it as a pen, and then he reviewed it and then said, yes, there's no pen, there's no contact, there's no free kick, then I would have thought, okay, that's pretty justified. But the fact that he gave it, then reviewed it, and then said there's no foul, I don't think it's a clear and obvious mistake. So then I've got some questions.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, in real time, it looked like a clear penalty because of how quick the moment happened, just from the side of the ground. But upon review, I thought he made the right call, because if it was a penalty, I would have said that's pretty soft.
It's hard.
But, I mean, then again, it's also the pressure building of the first one that didn't get given. And then you never know, that can influence decision-making too. Sydney FC get the job done at AAMI Park, guys. They have now booked themselves in to be playing the Premier's Plate winners Newcastle Jets. There's going to be a lot to play for. There's an extra week for Joe Lolley to train, a chance for Tisserand and Grant. There's a lot to play for them. And who knows with their clean sheet record where they could go. But we've got to break down Melbourne Victory's season, guys. We're going to do this in a bit of depth, Rashid, starting with your old team. With Victory's season, I mean, you've played at the club. You know the expectation around it. Is this a fail? Is this a stamp of average? Is this a pass mark for the club? Where would they be sitting right now?
I think most people would look at it as a failed year, yeah, especially at Victory with their high standards, and they want to win everything every year, pretty much. That's what my feeling was when I was there, and I think it's still the same. So I would see anything other than, a Premier's Plate or a grand final win, I would say is a failed season for a Melbourne Victory-sized club. But then when you're looking at the squad, do I look at that squad and think that's a squad that should win the league? I'm not sure. So I think there's some nuts and bolts that need to get tightened for next season for sure.
Yeah, well, we're going to go through some of the players out of contract, Butka, but the big one that I think the whole league wants to know what's going on is Juan Mata. And that's the burning question that we've got. Is he going to stay or is he going to go? Because we know that he said he's going to wait till the end of the season, quite early in the season when he was getting asked questions about it. But, I mean, what's your gut feel there? He's 38 years old. Is he going to stay for another season or two, or is he leaving the country?
Look, after the body of work that we saw, particularly over the last season, not only is an ambassador on the field, but off the field as well. So, if I was at Victory, if I was part of the commercial team there, I'm doing everything in, my power from a club perspective, and potentially even leaning in on the league to say, how do we keep him here and part of this football club? So hopefully, for the benefit of Australian football and the fans, and not just Melbourne Victory fans, I think all football fans, that we have him stay in the A-League and at Melbourne Victory. Like, that would be awesome. I mean, he's had a cracking year. He loves Melbourne. He's obviously, had a really, really strong year, assists, goals. He's done everything. So that's, a pretty big decision that the club are likely looking at, alongside obviously Diles and the head coach as well. I think Diles out of contract as well.
Rashid, what's your feeling with him? I mean, are you thinking that that's a player that has to stay? And from that point of view, I guess what are the key things do you reckon it's going to take for him to be back in the A-League?
Oh, I think Juan Mata has to stay.
Yeah.
Just on this show, how many times do we have talking points from him this year?
Yeah, he's actually holding the show together. Yeah. So
so
make sure you stay, Juan, please.
It's really important. So whatever life, whatever he wants in his life, like Butka said, the club needs to try to make that work. And if not, can the league step in and help as well? Because it's really important for not just Melbourne Victory, but the whole league to keep players like him around.
Some key players out of contract, guys. There's going to be potentially a lot of change going at Melbourne Victory, particularly potentially where they fell in the season. But nonetheless, there has to be a lot of decision made on some names. So the players that are going to be out of contract is Roderick Miranda, Nishan Velupillay, Nikos Virgos, Grimaldi, Jack Duncan, Wachowski, Charles Nduka, Adama Traore, and Franco Lino's loan has ended. Let's just touch on a few of them, guys, because a couple of these guys have been at Melbourne Victory for quite some time, and particularly Roderick Miranda, who's been a captain of the club. We know he's 35, and at times probably some injuries have hampered him over the last couple of seasons, but he's been a great servant for the club. Is that someone you're expecting to see stay, or is there a chance that the club's going to move him on and look to maybe refresh that centre-back pairing of what it will be next season?
It probably depends where they want to go as a football club. I mean, first things first, if Diles is there, what does Diles' plan look like over the next 2 to 5 years? For me, if Diles sets his team in place, which again he inherited the current squad outside of one or two that he brought in, I think that's going to be the biggest marker, right? When he comes in, what type of team does he want to build? Is he going to want to bring in fresh blood, young blood, keep some experience? So I think that's going to dictate, where a lot of this group comes in or goes out. So that's probably the question for me. That's where I would start.
Because with Miranda, all right, he's a bit of an ageing centre back, if you will, but you lose a lot with him in the dressing room. I mean, he's a massive part of what they do from a sort of cultural standpoint and how they operate as a team. He's been there for so long. Rashid, just out of that list, who are the players that you would identify that you've got to keep?
Well, just on Miranda, I think he needs a centre back pairing to sort of. Back a few years ago when Damien De Silva was there with him, I thought that looked like a very solid back four, regardless of who played next to them. So I think you need to bring in a player there or keep him or both. Vilupale is an interesting one because if he gets selected for the Socceroos and then he's out of contract, I don't know where he ends up. But when he's at his best, how good is he? So we obviously want to try to keep him around as much as possible, but maybe it's his time to go to Europe as well.
I think it's his time. 25, he's played 100-something games in the A-League. I think he deserves the challenge for where he's got to.
I think Grimaldi, I would like to see him get a few more minutes in his legs. He's showed glimpses this year, scored some big goals. I'd love to see him play a little bit more and see what he can do. And then the other one is Franco Lino, man. I said back there in the green room that he's, I reckon, our next left back for the Socceroos, man. He's incredible. Albeit, okay, he's given away the goal in this final, but he is phenomenal.
Yeah, a couple of other rumour mill names is Harry Sawyer to Melbourne Victory and Herman Ferreira to Victory, believe it or not. I actually heard that today, but apparently that's been going around for a few weeks, so we'll keep an eye on that. What's not a rumour mill is Arthur Diles is out of contract, guys. So, it's interesting how Paddy Kisnorbo left Victory last year. Although Arthur Diles was his assistant, knew the group, he came into a bit of a foreign position as a head coach in his first head coaching role and made the grand final and did an incredible job, knocked off Auckland in the semi. And then this year had a pretty strong season, at least through the middle of the season. They started a bit slow, but knocked out in the elimination final. Are you keeping Arthur Diles? Does he deserve another contract?
I think what he's done and seeing, which, I mean, it's pretty obvious in hindsight and probably also at the time, but what he's done with Juan Mata and making him comfortable, making him play every week after the season that he had last year at Wanderers, I think that needs to be spoken about because I don't see any other coaches in the league doing that in that situation. But should he stay? I think he's given himself enough credit to get another season, and particularly like Butker said before, he was given most of his squad. So to see what he can do, can he create, a squad himself, and what he can do with his own plans and his own mindset? I'd like to see him have another season. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I think he deserves a definite another go, and a bit of a refresh on the squad will be interesting for him to see. Now, Auckland guys, they set up a fixture with Adelaide, their semi-final. We're going to pull up some of the penalties in this game. As we know, Melbourne City scored in the last minute to tie the game, and it went through extra time into penalties. Roy O'Donovan was caught saying that it's the highest quality penalty shootout he's ever seen. Guys, Rashid, if you want to have a look at these and take us through some of these spot kicks, because the finishing, I mean, the pressure in these moments as well, like right in front of the home fans there's a lot brewing, but we see some of these pens, the keeper's guessing the right side. This one from Guillermo Mai, I mean, top quality under pressure, isn't it?
Honestly, I would say probably 50% of them are amazing. The others are just like, what is a good pen, boys?
The ones that go in.
The ones that go in. So that's obviously why he said that. And but no, some of them are pretty amazing. Some of them coming off the inside of the crossbar and the post and stuff. So a good standard. And then unfortunately, Atkins in the end had to step up, and someone's got to miss at some point.
Someone's got to miss.
Yeah, unfortunately, but that was a massive moment there for Michael Vowd, saving, and then Dan Hall steps up and puts Auckland through in front of the home fans, which was a massive moment for them. Guillermo Mai was scoring 3 in 2 weeks, opened the scoring in just before half-time, and then Medin Mehmeti on the last kick of the game off a set piece brought them to it. Guys, a big talking point, though, is Sam Cosgrove, who was a tied Golden Boot winner. He played the last hour of the game versus City with ankle ligament damage, right? So he's got to bit of a problem going into these Adelaide fixtures, and he's a massive part of what they do. I mean, we know how big and strong he is, how he's a focal point in their direct nature, and he's always there causing problems with defenders in the box and so forth. I mean, playing with a ruptured ankle is going to be pretty tough going into the next 2 legs against Adelaide, Butker.
Well, straight into P3 recovery, I think, for the vitamin IV stack. We used to have Needles Maguire over in Perth, WA, and he just used to just jab away and a little little cortisone injection. Look, he'll do whatever it takes to play over the next fortnight and make sure he gets through. He played 60 minutes, so it couldn't have been too bad. And he looked okay when he was on. And for me, I think you have to have him part of the squad. He has to be part of that equation.
And I agree with you. But if you think about it like this, right? When he was not on the park, they were winning 1-0. When he was on the park, they lost 1-0.
Okay. I mean, he did score 11 goals though this year. So, you're looking at it from, if you look at it from a 90-minute lens, that makes sense, but not for the whole season, I don't think. I think he's pretty important for him. Can Auckland beat Adelaide though, Rashid? That's the big question. They're going to have him there, and then they've got to go to Coopers, which we know can be hostile at times. Do they have it in them to beat what is one of the youngest and form teams in the comp?
Bro, I don't know who to pick anymore. Like last week, I said I think Auckland's the only one that probably won't do it. And I said that I think City's going to go and win it. So I think Adelaide's going to be very difficult. Adelaide will be very difficult for any team through this final series, particularly away at Adelaide.
Yeah, I think without Cosgrove, it is going to be tough. We've got to talk about Melbourne City, though, their season, Butker, because it felt like on here 2-3 weeks ago, and to Rashid's point about it's a bit of a guessing game, we thought City was the form team going into the finals, and then all of a sudden they're knocked out. Now, they, maybe just quickly on their season, they didn't have the best home and away season compared to being a reigning champion. What's your sort of mark on them? Because we know they're a pretty competitive club in regards to wanting to win every year with the resources that they have. But they fell short in the league this year.
Yeah, look, you mentioned resources, and they do. The club is, the way it's set up structurally is awesome. I still think they did have to balance out Asia in the early part, and then they came really, really good with that late run. Obviously, Younis a big part of that as well. It might be burnout. I mean, to be perfectly honest, they've lost on a penalty shootout. They could have won that game, and they might be, 2 games closer to a grand final. These are the fine lines in football. I think internally they will see that as a failure, and the challenge moving forward for the football club is potentially how do we balance both leagues at the same time if we're in that situation. They are the 3rd youngest squad in the league. Again, there is some experience alongside that youth, but maybe a little bit more in that sort of mid-target that can help, balance out that age, I guess, with a lot of young boys as part of that squad. Yeah,
well, they're going to have some change definitely coming this season because Andrew Nabu, Andreas Kuhn, Herman Ferreira and Samuel Suprayan are all out of contract. You think probably Nabu and Suprayan potentially may not be there next year. I know Nabu's had his injury troubles and is getting to sort of the back end of his career, but Suprayan is in his late 30s and has been injured. Kuhn and Ferreira, they're probably 2 players you'd think they might want to keep, but they might not want to be there as well. So I guess that's a bit of a watch on them. But what they did try and do to revamp their season, City, was those January signings, which I think we're all in agreement. Marcus Younis was an absolute catch. And then it just took time for Arzani and Teague to get going. And obviously Teague with the injury and Dalbridge came in, who's going to be there for next season. But it feels like they do need to get a bit of a focal point with their strikers going. I know Max Caputo did well and Mehdi Mehmeti has done well, but they need a player that's going to get them 10, 15, 20 goals a year in that squad because they had less goals than Macarthur, Wellington and Central Coast. So that's going to be an area that they're going to be focusing on, I'm sure. And if there's a club that that's going to be working in the window, it's going to be Melbourne City, isn't it? So Rashid, for you, just a quick one on them. Pass mark or they're short of what City's capable of?
Oh, definitely short. And then in terms of the players going out, I think Kuhn's a loss if they lose him. I think he's kind of flies under the radar with how important he is to their squad. And then Ferreira, I know he's had a bit more of a shaky season this year than what he normally has, but he's been very important for them. So they'll need to, again, go into that this transfer window and do some real work. But then who knows what's coming out of that academy at Melbourne City. Always,
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
The factory.
Supply chain.
Yeah, the factory there. Guys, before the Big Blue was in the Ninja A-Leagues was actually a Melbourne Derby in the first leg of a semi-final. Melbourne Victory taking on Melbourne City in a home game. There was no extra time in this one, obviously being a second leg, and no such thing as away goals. All goals count as part of the aggregate. And what was making this such a big game? Obviously, City won the Premier's Plate. Victory didn't have the greatest season, but we know how good they can be in finals, especially under Jeff Hopkins. But this Victory team hasn't beaten Melbourne City since 2023 semi-final. So it has been some time between drinks. Victory, I thought, started the game really well, but Melbourne City across the 90 minutes just dominated play, really suffocated their attack, and were just that bit of a level above. And it was really going to be an interesting second leg to see what happens. But City, you can see, are just an absolute real force. And a decisive moment and decisive player in the game was Letitia McKenna, who was our player of the match. And Rashid, this was her free kick, which I think the Melbourne Victory keeper will want to forget about. But nonetheless, it was the moment that split the two teams apart.
Yeah, and they all count, Jake. And Letitia McKenna's actually just debuted for the Matildas and got herself a goal as well. So she'll be buzzing. Goal for the Matildas and goal for her club in a semi-final. So well done, Letitia.
Yeah, absolutely. High on life there. That was a massive moment for them. Now, these two teams have been in 5 of the last 6 grand finals between them. And City have won the last 3 premierships, but haven't won a championship since 2020. And they lost to Central Coast, obviously, in the semis last year, and Sydney in the grand final in 2024. So there's a bit of a chip on the shoulder there, despite their success to go all the way here. And then in the other leg, Brisbane Roar are leading Wellington 2-1, which was played in Brisbane. The second leg of the other semi-final is going to be played in Wellington. So there's still maybe a few more twists and turns in the Ninja A-League with the second legs to go, but very much excited to see it. I really think Melbourne City's the clear favourite in this one, though. The way they played football, dominated the game. They were very, very good. I mean, Rebecca Stott, I saw her after the game. She barely had any sweat breaking out. She's a Rolls Royce, absolute Rolls Royce, New Zealand international for them. So we'll keep an eye on the Ninja A-Leagues and we'll keep you updated here across the downloads. Now, the audience question, guys. We know every Sunday night they jump around the A-League channels and socials, and you can ask myself and the panel any questions that you like. And we've got a couple of beauties today. This one is from Navally Informed on Instagram. If Lolley, Tisserand and Alex Grant are fit, are Sydney a genuine championship threat? Rashid.
Well, it comes down to the old question in football, do you change a winning team? I think in this situation you don't.
Yeah.
But if those 3 come back, they're going to be very hard to beat. But like we've said every week at this bloody downloads, that anyone can beat anyone.
Yeah, well, I think Joe Lolley, I don't know if he's capable of coming back into the starting 11, but he's the one that if he's fit, he's playing. But yeah, I don't think you change a back four that's just kept a clean sheet, despite the experience that those guys may have. The next one is Robin Grant on Facebook, Butker. Have Melbourne City's management retrieved Marcus Younis from Callan Elliott's back pocket yet? Well, that's obviously a cheeky jab from an Auckland fan at Marcus Younis, saying the fullback got the better of Marcus Younis. But I mean, what do you say to that? That's a bit of your banter, Butker. You might have read that one.
Not bad. Look, I think Younis had one really good chance, so he could have changed the game, in that split second. But all in all, he's had a cracker 7 weeks. And that was a really, really tough game across the board. There weren't too many goals in it, as we saw. I think we say Younis on the night maybe didn't get the chockies.
Yep. Well, we've got some big games coming up. Obviously, Sydney playing Newcastle, Auckland playing Adelaide. Guys, quick tip in those first leggers. They're obviously going to be played in Sydney and Auckland. Who are we going in those games?
I'm going to go with Adelaide and Newcastle.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go back-to-back with the Lord. So
Back-to-back.
Same tips.
No upsets.
Same tips.
Rightio. Well, let's see what happens. Because
we're both going to be wrong.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah,
how about this? I'll go the reverse. I'm going to say Newcastle and Auckland. Sydney and Auckland. Because, that's what this league delivers at times. It is going to be a hell of a couple games coming for you in our preliminary finals of the A-League, guys. It's going to be absolutely blockbusters.
Can't wait.
Massive win for Sydney FC. What they did can't be underestimated at AAMI Park. And then Auckland probably deserve with their season to be in the preliminary finals setup. So appreciate you guys coming on the show, as always.
Good to see you, boys.
Outstanding.
Butker, Rashid.
Outstanding.
Absolutely brilliant. For everyone at home, thanks for all your likes, comments and shares of the show. We appreciate it. That'll be all from us here at the A-League's Download. presented by Isuzu UTE. We'll see you next week.